everybody, welcome to today's session. We have a really amazing session for you today. This is the second in 4 sessions that compose the Berklee and GMI Global Songwriter Series. If you didn't already let us know, please put in the chat where you're joining us from. We'd love to see where all of our participants are coming from. Use the chat feature in this session instead of the Q&A so we can see what you want to talk to us about. Like I said, this is our second session in the Global Songwriter Series, and this is presented by Berklee Global Initiatives and the Global Music Institute. Today's session will focus on production for the songwriter. There will be 2 more sessions following this one in the coming weeks. So our third session, which you can see all of them laid out right here on the slide, our third session will be distribution and release for songwriters with a focus on the Indian subcontinent market. So that'll be coming up in just a couple of weeks. And then the final session will be the songwriting critique session, where both GMI and Berklee faculty will critique songs. So this is a really special series because if you attend all 4 sessions, you will get a certificate of completion from Berklee and GMI. So that's pretty awesome. And after the third session, so that next one coming up at the end, we're going to allow everyone to submit their songs for both Berklee and GMI to take a look at them, critique them, give you some feedback. So really, we hope to see you at the next couple. We're going to take a minute right now to just allow everybody to register for that next session coming up. You can scan the QR code right here on the screen, and that'll bring you to the registration page. So as a reminder, if you want to get that certificate of completion, you have to attend all 4 of these sessions. And if you want to submit your song for that critique, which is a pretty amazing opportunity with the Berklee and GMI faculty, we want to see you at all 4 of those sessions. So please register right now, use that QR code on the screen. And then the really exciting part that I didn't mention yet is at the conclusion of the whole series, we're going to pick 3 songs that are going to be featured by both Berklee and GMI on social media and on our websites. So we can't wait to see what kind of songs you're going to submit for us to listen to. It's a really exciting series. All right. And if you missed the registration now, don't worry about it at all. We're going to send the information in an email at the end of the session later today or tomorrow. All right, and I just want to introduce myself. My name is Bree Tagliaferro. I'm the Assistant Director in Global Initiatives here at Berklee. If you want to connect with me online, you can scan right there for my Instagram. We are having events like this all the time with Global Initiatives, both online, and we're visiting many different places around the world. As Jason said earlier, we actually have a team right now in Singapore, so if you're there, definitely check that out. And we're excited to be here with you today. So again, my name's Bree. Now I want to introduce you to our presenters for today's session. First, Aditya Balani, who is a co-founder of the Global Music Institute, also known as GMI, and is an Ableton certified trainer. You can scan both of those QRs right there to take you to Adi's Spotify and Instagram to stay connected with what Adi is doing. Adi's a multifaceted musician and educator, is the co-founder and director of GMI. His work has transcended stylistic and international borders and has been featured on many programs, including BBC Asia Beats, MTV Coke Studio, BBC Radio, The Rolling Stone, GQ, The Guardian, and many more. I also want to introduce you to our other guest for today's session, JP, who is a faculty member at GMI. You can scan both of his codes right there, Instagram, Spotify, find out what JP is doing, follow his work. He is a New Delhi-based producer and DJ who has pioneered his own unique sound and thrilling audience with it across the length of the country. Building his music and sets upon rhythmic foundations of the dance grooves, Jay's more recent experimentation has been towards integrating cinematic elements into the atmospheric soundscapes of his sets. So we're so excited to have both of you here with us today. Now I'm going to turn it over to you, Adi, and yeah, take it away.
Thank you so much, Bree, for the warm introduction and kicking off the wonderful session. It's just such a pleasure to do this with the Berklee Global Initiatives. We had a fantastic first session, and everybody who was there with us, welcome back if you're here. And everybody who's joining us today for the first time, again, a big warm welcome. We are super excited to do this with you all. So what we did the last time was we spoke about the majority of the time we spent on the songwriting aspect, where how are we crafting our lyrics, how are we shaping our songs. And today we want to take us through the journey of how are we taking it to the production aspect and how are we streamlining our ideas and building them into a finished product, right? So I'm just going to take a moment to just set up my presentation here. Just give me a minute. Can we all see my screen?
Yep, it looks good, man.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to open this up to the chat to everybody. What do music producers do? Like, what is music production? If you want to just type in here. Somebody saying realizing a vision, arranging music, they produce the music. Music producers produce the music. That's a good one. Write and compose music, add instruments to lyrics. Directing, help arrange, polishing the song. Make a song out of a poem. Okay, produce music, doing arrangements, deciding parts, work on a DAW to arrange the music. Exactly. I think all of you have got it right. There are all these different aspects when it comes to music production. It's a huge sort of array of things that music producers do. And if we just want to quickly look at the music production or the record production process, because this is more sort of the traditional route of what we saw when people were making records in studios. You have the song or the composition as the raw material. Then the next stage is to obviously arrange it and create the arrangement that is going to work based on the genre and the style. And then you create a very high quality recording of the performance of the song by an artist or a couple of artists. The next, it goes to the mixing and mastering stage, where again, it's quality control. We're trying to get the best sounding mix and master of that recording. And then we go to the final delivery stage, whether it's cassette, I don't know if you've heard of cassettes, vinyl, CDs, streaming, whatever formats we want to deliver our music into the final delivery format. So a lot of you have already put this out. So I'm just going to quickly take you through this, where again, so the music or the record producer, again, in a traditional sense, would manage the studio recording process, bringing the artistic vision to life. A lot of you said that. They sometimes also oversee the songwriting, arrangement, and recording process. They also manage budget. Sometimes, what would happen is the record label would assign a producer to make sure that the project is completed on time and is on budget. It could be, let's say, you're taking 4 months or 6 months to produce a record. So a lot of things could just go out of hand. So producers also would make sure that the budgets are being maintained. They would also sometimes handle contracts, negotiations, and as a lot of you said, keeping goals and the vision intact. Because as I said, sometimes major albums are made, over months or, years as well. So the idea is, what was the initial vision? Are we keeping that intact, or have we sort of waved away from it? That is a producer's job to sort of make sure all the pieces are tied together. Also get the most inspiring performances delivered by the artist. Sometimes, the artists are in a different headspace. They may not be feeling the music, or they may not be, feeling the way the performances are coming through. So the producer sort of figures out a way to create that environment where the best sort of performances are, being delivered by the artist. And as I said, standards and quality control, where are we recording at the most optimum quality? Is the mix or at an international standard, the master, all of those things. And at a large sense, they sort of they bridge, between the record labels, management, all of those areas, and the musical artists. So they have that role to play as well. Now, when we look at today's day and age, things are a bit different, but I think we can, I wanted to show you a little video of a very iconic producer. And then we can, I'm sure all of you know Quincy Jones. He's going to talk about one little snippet about working with Michael Jackson.
Adi, we're not getting the audio from the video.
Oh, okay. I'm going to reshare.
Yeah,
again.
reshare it. Yeah. Yeah, I think you probably forgot to share audio.
Yep.
No worries.
Okay, something is up. Okay. Okay, let's try this again.
What on those albums, Thriller, for example,
Excellent.
is you? You have his music, some of his writing, some of his
but look,
influence.
we take his stuff and take it to another level. Don't stop till you get enough. It's very well known that Michael sent me a note. Could you please take off the violins in the introduction? No, it's messed up my groove. You know what that line was? Diddle 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 diddle. Identifying line on the goddamn song.
So he said, take it off?
Yeah.
And you said?
No way. I thought, you don't tell me what to do. No.
Who was right?
Well, what ended up on the record?
Yeah.
That's one of the strongest parts of the introduction. Diddle 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 would have been right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so as we saw that, Michael Jackson, the artist, he had his own vision of what he thought that would work, where he wanted to take that song, and he didn't like that particular string sort of a line. But then the producer had this idea that that's very, very important for the song. And so sometimes, you can have these conflicting ideas and visions about the song. But then sometimes it's good because, who knows where somebody's idea could take that song and elevate it. As he said, like, we want to take those ideas and elevate them to the next level. So now when we talk about taking this concept into today's day and age, where a lot of you are self-producing, a lot of you are producing in the box, which means that you're just producing majority of your work in a DAW. So things have changed, and there is this sort of new way of working where bedroom producers are winning Grammys, which is quite exciting actually. So then what is the process when we have our song? So now let's go back to where we left off the last time, where we're talking about the songwriting, where we took the essential elements of the song, which is the melody. We shaped the melody and had the lyric where, we found ways where we could do show, not tell, and also add metaphors, add object writing to add more dimension to our lyric, and then add harmony. So that basically becomes your essential sort of framework of the song. And then you figure out what are the song structure, what are the different sections that are going to be, what are the lengths, all of those, and then create the arc of a song. So that song exists in that way. But then what is the next step? The next step is what we call pre-production. Now, what we do here is that the idea is that if we are going to a recording studio, or whether we are recording in our own sort of setup, we don't want to just hit the record button. We want to think about what is the sonic vision of the song, right? What is the genre? What is the style? What do I want it to sound like? What are the different treatment ideas? So how do we do that? One of the things that I like to do is, if it's sort of a traditional song, then I would create an acoustic demo where you can hear the song from start and finish in its bare essential form. So you can get the idea, okay, this is the song as is, and then what are the other areas we want to work with. Or if it's a little bit more electronic, hip hop, all of that, then you do a scratch production where what you do is you lay out some of the sections and start adding sounds, synth parts. So you create the sonic sort of texture of the song and start working with it. Another thing to do is look at reference tracks. Now, the idea of reference tracks is where, let's say you want to say, okay, for my verse, I'm looking at this kind of a treatment, where if you are going to a producer or if you're producing yourself, you can tell them that, okay, this is the kind of idea that I'm looking at, maybe like a very heavy bass line, or there's a particular drum groove. The more references we have, the more we are able to communicate to our producer what we're looking at, right? So you could make a list of all the different treatment ideas you want for different parts of the sections of your song. And then again, look at what is the arrangement and the instrumentation we want. Do we want strings? Do we want like a very 80s synth sort of a vibe? Do we want a heavy rock or a metal sort of a vibe? What exactly are we looking for in terms of a style, arrangement, instrumentation, all of those? Another thing is, you may have written the song, but what if some other artist is going to sing that song? What is the key that works? And if the key changes, then how are other things working? Like, let's say if you have an horn arrangement, then obviously that will have to be re-recorded if you've recorded it, or you have to kind of make sure that the key is set, because then you would write the horn parts in that key and then you would record it. And those are very expensive sessions in the studio. You have to be prepared in all of these areas. Again, the tempo. Uh, even something like 5 BPM completely changes sometimes the entire feel of the song. So in that case, try out different tempos, what works for the song, what doesn't work. And obviously in the studio, you can try, maybe different versions at different tempo and see what works. But it's a good idea to experiment and see which are the different kinds of tempos that work. So those are some of the things that we can do in the pre-production stage, where we actually are looking at all these areas of the song and then kind of preparing ourselves to go into the production stage. Any questions so far? Can't see the chat. Yeah, okay. So now what I'm going to do is invite JP, who is a fantastic producer, DJ, and he's going to take us through a song production breakdown of a song he's working on with another artist, Charita Arora. She is a GMI alumna, and her artist name is Rora Doll. So I've posted their links here, so if you want to check them out. They are very, very generous to share with us a almost finished song. So they're going to take us through their songwriting process, their production process, and then once the song is released, we'll share that with you as well. So over to you, JP. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Adi. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Good to see so many people from all over the world tuning in for this amazing workshop. And like Adi said, a lot of things goes. You have to think a lot of aspects before you go and start producing a song. For example, the biggest thing he spoke about is the songwriting and the pre-production stage, where you in a way visualize what your song is without even having a single piece of music recording or production done in the DAW. It's just all in the brain of how you see your song, or what do you want this song out of, like what do you want out of this song. Most of the time it starts with a basic like a scratch idea, and you build up on that. Usually, every singer-songwriter, they come up with a melody or a harmony or a hook, something as simple as that, and just send it out to your producer, and you sit with your producer and really understand where you can take this song to. So the track that I'm going to break down for you guys today is one of those things. Before I tell you how this song was made, I'm going to give you a backstory of what this how that track happened. So I was writing new material for one of my new shows, and without even having a song, I so wanted to collaborate with Rora Roll Charita, that I just announced that I'm going to feature her in the show, right? We didn't even have a song. So once I announced it, like, no, it was very important for us to have a song. And then for months, and I'm not even kidding, for months and months, we were just sending ideas to each other and nothing ever worked. Like, nothing ever worked. I'd send a beat, I'll send a loop, and she'll try write something, and 2 days later we'll be like, it sounds meh. Nothing worked, and I was literally stressed now because I've announced it and it's not happening. So after 2-3 months, finally she sent me this voice note, which I'm going to play you right now. And she was not sure about whether this is going to work or not, but I heard it and I said, this is it. And let's hear it, what she sent. Give me 1 second.
While you're rebooting, if you want to play, just if you have a recording of the scratch, otherwise we'll just wait for a second and then.
It'd be better if we just wait for a second.
Sure, no worries.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things I'll remind people as JP is going back and getting his audio set up is, for those of you that were in the first session, remember to go back and keep working on your lessons. I know that Valerie gave us all an assignment to do some object writing every day for 10 minutes, not more than 10 minutes. That way you don't get tired of it. So I'm interested to know, for those of you that are here in the session, how's your object writing going? Have you been able to do some object writing? Is it helping you with coming up with some creative ideas for your lyrics and for your songs? I know that when I do it, I do a lot of co-writing with actually the Dean of Admissions at Berklee, and I have a rock band. And we love doing this object writing stuff together. It's really funny. We obviously we like to write really funny rock songs. So it's really a trip to do that. And yeah, it's a great way to get really cool lyric ideas, and then to kind of begin putting them into your different song forms and do some of that prosody work with your harmonies and your melodies and your grooves and everything else. So how's it looking now, JP? You think you want to give it a try?
The session won't start up at all now.
Oh, no, it's not starting. Okay, cool. No worries. Well, keep working on it there. And
of course.
Yeah, it might be a reboot thing. Huh, what a drag. That's no worries. If you need to reconnect, we can totally do that. And
sure. Maybe I might have to do that.
Yeah. And Adi, I mean, is the work that you do teaching production with students at GMI, do you have any insights that could that folks here would want to begin digging in on? What are some of the things that you cover in your lessons with students?
Yeah, that's a good one. So the way we've structured it is that we pay a lot of attention in the beginning to learning sort of the audio engineering aspects with acoustics and learning sort of the technicality. While we're doing that, then we also learn about various aspects of the DAWs, how is sort of also about critical listening, because with producers, I think one of the things that came up in the chat was also, it's very important to have a good ear, because it's not just about the technical skills about, okay, you know how to compress, but what are you compressing? How are you looking at aesthetically working with that? What are the choices that you're making? And sometimes, those are even sort of more important sometimes than the technical aspects. So we do that. Then we also work on professional development, where you learn the business side of things. How are you looking at publishing, registering your copyright, all of those areas. And then the latter half of the program focuses on writing for visual media, scoring for visual media, sound design, and advanced mixing and mastering, some of those areas as well. So that, in a nutshell, is what the program covers.
That's really comprehensive. Actually, it's a lot of information. And when you're working with like somebody who's, say, like a songwriter, like they've been writing on the keyboard, or they're writing on a guitar, they're writing with a friend, and they're just starting to take that step into shaping their songs and going at the production side of it from that conceptual thing that that Quincy, like Q, was talking about.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you recommend people begin doing? Like, when it comes to that sort of critical listening part and listening like a producer, like, what are the things that you ask your students to begin to analyze? What should they be getting their ears into?
Wow, exactly. Because let's take an example of one song. There's so much that you can hear. You can hear the arrangement, you can hear the orchestration, the instrumentation, the way things are layered. How are they shaping different sections? Stylistically, there's so much that we can go. If you look at hip hop, then there's so much that we can go into hip hop. How hip hop producers work. Then if you're looking at dubstep, if you're looking at sort of classic rock, then how are they producing? There's so much that we can go into just the musical language. And then while you're doing that, also look at what is the technical sort of aspect. What are the different technical areas that they're covering? How are they looking at treating the kick drum from that point of view? How are they looking at miking the cymbals? What does it sound like? How are they looking at miking vocals? How are they produced? Is it closed mic? Is it and how is the mix then? Is it sort of up in the face, or is it very airy? There's so many areas that we can develop when we look at our ears and shape that. Because I think what happens is when you're starting out, you always just focus on, okay, my voice, my guitar part, and then that sort of becomes a word. And then a producer is just looking at the other end and saying, okay, how do we translate that into like a bigger vision that's going to speak to a universal audience?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I
So
mean,
I would
it's,
say,
I
yeah,
remember, one of the things that I think our listeners here in this session maybe not have experienced, because we all watch music now.
right,
And there used to be a time when, you would buy the media and you would actually have the opportunity to like really dig into the liner notes and see
yeah,
who the writers are, who the producers are, and then obviously it's getting it, finding out who these creators are and what their approach is. And
mm,
that, that's like to that question that I noted earlier is like, how do you, how do you develop a sound? And it's just like as a musician, whether you're a vocalist or a songwriter or a horn player or a rhythm section player, it's the sort of the Clark Terry, we're going to copy a lot. We're going to imitate a lot. We're going to take sounds from the artists that we're working with and copy them. And then we're going to kind of like combine them and start to play with them a little bit and take part of Quincy Jones, part of this producer and part of that producer, and mix them together. And then over time, and it's really a long time that it might take, you begin to develop your own aesthetic and your own sound. And I think there was a question earlier in the chat for you, Adi, and maybe you and JP can answer this later on, but what is your sonic approach? And that would be something really interesting to delve into later. But JP's back. And JP, you want to give it a try here with your track?
Yeah. So sorry, guys. Technical error, but this happens all the time. Okay, cool. So again, like I was saying, the song really started with a scratch vocal note that she sent me over WhatsApp, and this is how it sounds. Let me know if you can hear this now.
Do you see me
yeah,
going under? I lost all wonder to blue. Can you feel me falling over? I'm breaking into two. I'm losing my mind. I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind. I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow.
Yeah. So that was the original idea that she sent me, and the moment I heard it, I realized, this can be a really good song. So while we were thinking about what the song needs to sound like, there were very few things that we were particular about. One of them was that I wanted this track to be a club track, in the sense I did want this to sound really big on big sound system. And another thing that we were very sure about was to make it as minimal as possible. So it was very important for us to have sound design, or the selection of sound, be so tight that we don't have to layer things over and over again to make things sounds really massive. So while we were focused more on the vocal production in terms of instrumentation, I was very sure about a bass line which is not like a conventional bass line, but inspired by modulations and electronic music, and a lot of LFO movement happening in the filter of the bass line. So there were a few things that we were really sure of, and taking this idea, I invited her to the studio, and then we did the first scratch production, and this is how it sounds like.
Do you see me going under? I lost all wonder to blue. Can you feel me falling over and breaking into two? I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. Do you see me turning around, looking to be found? I'm running over every hard ground, not even making a sound.
Sorry guys, I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's unreleased, but yeah. So that was the first scratch arrangement that we decided, and we sat on it for some time and realized, okay, this is the direction of the song that we want, and it works for us. We even took this scratch arrangement and performed for the show, and it did work. So then we knew that this is a track, a solid track that is worth producing more. And then, we wanted to now take it to the final stages of production. So coming after the show, this is us producing the entire song, and I'm gonna play you the final production on this song. Obviously, at this level, at this point, we had a clear idea of what the song is and what it lacked. More than anything, we realized after performing that there are a few things which is not working. For example, in the arrangement, some parts were too long, and it was missing a melody line or like a counter melody. In terms of vocals, we thought we needed some harmonies and some more production on the vocals, because just the dry vocals didn't really work well. And even before that, the first thing that I realized was picking the right microphone for her voice. When we went for the final production for this song, the first thing I tried was like, trying all those fancy microphones, ribbon microphones and condenser microphones and all sorts of microphones. I tried 3-4 microphones and nothing really worked well. Ribbon microphones were too warm, too round for this style of music. Some condenser microphones were just becoming a bit too mid-range heavy and wasn't giving me the right sound. And surprisingly, what really worked was this microphone. This is a small diaphragm pencil condenser microphone, which they use to record overheads for drums. It's not even meant to record vocals, but somehow this microphone did the job. So it's equally important that what you select for what vocals. Sometimes, a microphone can make it or make or break your track. So one important advice to you guys, that like, try few microphones before you commit to one microphone, or see which one sounds the best for you, for your range of vocals, or whosoever you're producing for. Like, don't commit to one microphone that that works. Like, always try, because every different vocalist has a different range. The texture is different, and then you want to get the texture right for the specific vocalist that you're working on. And yeah, based on that, we track the final vocals, and this is where the final production of the song is.
Do you see me going under? I lost all wonder to blue. Can you feel me falling over, breaking into two? I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. Do you see me turning around, looking to be found? I'm running over every hard ground, not even making a sound. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow.
Sorry guys, still not gonna play the whole thing. But yeah, so this is where the final song is at. And now, so sorry guys, I know I can read the comments, but it's an release track and I want you to hear the whole thing when the song is out. Yep. Anyway, so now let's break down the entire arrangement and the production. I'm gonna mute vocals for now because that's another thing altogether. But in terms of production, the first thing, like on instrumental part, the first very important thing was the bass line. And like I said, I wanted a very mean, big sounding bass line. So
A lot of people want to know
here's,
about that bass. That bass
yeah,
sounds,
I'm gonna show you
yeah.
how I made it also. But let's just listen to the bass line right now. If I solo it, this is how it sounds like. Yeah, it is an overpowering bass line, but this is something that we wanted in the song. How I created this, again, it's a very simple technique of using a lot of modulations in your production. For example, you use a very simple synthesizer. Uh, operator is one synthesizer, which allows you to do frequency modulation. Read about it. If you guys don't know what that is, you can achieve very interesting tones with it. Let me just bypass a few things. And by itself, the bass line is very simple. Added some modulations over it, sine wave modulations on filter, the decay, and some sidechain compression, some EQ on it. Yeah, and now that with the kick drum sounds something that will move you on the floor. Just to add some more rhythm to it, added some perks and snares. Very simple beat, but again, like I said, the idea was to create minimal production, not to overpower with the groove, not to add too much. If simple things can do the job, that's my philosophy of production. I don't complicate things if it's not required, because I always produce with the philosophy of simplicity is the authenticity. If you just try to add too many things, sometimes the focus just strips away from what you intended to have in the song. And for me, that's it doesn't work for me. So again, another advice that I would give you is that focus what works on the track, what's more important, and structure everything around it. Don't try to add in too many things over there. Yeah, so from this simple beat came the chords over here, very simple chords. It's not like, there's not even complex voicing over here. It's just simple triad. And in terms of selection of the sound, this is something that I designed on Operator. A lot of time, again, in my production process, I don't really go for the presets. Rather, I design my own thing, because then I know what exactly I'm designing and why am I designing. What is the frequency area that I'm targeting when I'm designing a sound. So naturally, there's the mixing happening while I'm making the sounds, because I try to have sounds that are not conflicting with the other frequency area in that region, or with the vocals or with the drums. So this is just a simple sound with a sawtooth wave and some filtering on it with some filter modulations. That's about it. And then some saturation to add a little bit of drive on it, and very basic just corrective EQing to remove the low frequencies. That layered with the pads over here. And just simple pluck melody over here. Moving to the next part, I've used some piano. This is a free piano plugin by Spitfire Audio. If you guys don't know what Spitfire Audio is, just Google it. They are a company who make biggest of the biggest libraries for music production, and they're quite big in Hollywood. They make a lot of orchestra, strings, all sorts of instrument libraries over here, and they have free versions of a few of their libraries. One of them is called Labs. Do check them out. They have beautiful sounds for free. So this is just one of that plugin. A gentle, soft piano. With everything over here, it sounds like this. elements that I showed you. One other thing that's there in the track is this lead over here. And that's almost everything that's there in the track, nothing more than this in terms of instrumentation. But like I said, the main idea was to keep it as minimal as it can so that I can fill the track up with the vocals. And with this, moving to the next part, which is the vocal part over here, this is where the main production in terms of vocals happened. Let me just solo the vocal bus once and then play you everything, and then I'll break down how I produce the vocals.
Do you see me going under? I lost all wonder to blue. Can you feel me falling over, breaking into two? I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow.
And then there's the other part.
Do you see me turning around, looking to be found? I'm running over every hard ground, not even making a sound. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow.
Yeah. So that's all the vocal production in the song. Coming to the intro part over here, this is the main vocal line.
Do you see me going under? I lost all wonder to blue.
But obviously, like I see in the chat, everyone's interested in harmonizing, like, no, how did I achieve that effect? So multiple things.
And also the vocoder. I think some people also want to know about the vocoder. Yeah.
So to get the harmonies, a lot of that was recorded. We did one main vocal line recording, then we did 4 dubs, 2 dubs for the left channel, 2 dubs for the right channel for the entire track. So that's just jumping. Then we recorded some harmonies, higher octave and lower octave. So in terms of recording, that was that. Then adding some more layer, what I did was use Ableton vocoder to create this. Then there's another plugin called Harmony Engine by Antaras. The guys who made Autotune, it's a brilliant harmony plugin. It's called Harmony Engine in itself. Just throwing on any vocals and tweak a few knobs, and your mind will blow. Like it'll blow. It's that good. So I've used that, and then I've used some vocoding plugins from Waves. So these are 3 tools that I use to create the harmonies. For example, this harmony was created with the Harmony Engine by Antaras over here.
Going under, lost all wonder to blue. Falling over, breaking into.
Then this is the same thing, but just to thicken the vocal, it's dead center mono, while the other ones are panned left and right. So this sounds like that.
I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm
Then
losing
using
my
the waves
mind.
vocoder, I created these ones. And then that layered with another layer of dubs, which are sounding like this.
I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body
And everything played together in terms of vocals, it sounds like this.
I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow.
Yeah. So again, while your main vocal take is important, just to thicken the vocals, like adding the dubs and the harmonies just fills up the entire spectrum, specifically when you are approaching minimal music production for your track. Other than that, in the next part of the track, we have some more harmonies that we've recorded.
I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind, I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow.
So these are again the harmonies that we recorded, take over take, just like multiple takes. Probably had 7, 8, 9 takes of everything, and then I selected the parts that I liked. Obviously, with just the recording, it doesn't cut through. After that, what I did was heavy compression on the harmonies, a lot of doubling, a lot of chorus effect on the harmonies, and just again multiple layers of compression to just thicken the entire voice so much that it fills up the entire spectrum. So it's not only the recording, also what you do after the recording that fills up everything in your track.
Mind, time, in my body slow. Mind, time, in my body slow.
Yeah. And that's almost all the vocal production over here. One very interesting thing that I did with the vocals is this vocal synth over here, because sometimes while it's fun to have another synthesizer, if you just do things with vocals, that can give you even more interesting result. For example, this vocal synth is created out of vocal recording. Let me just bypass everything and you would know what I'm saying here. So what we did is we recorded each note of the chord separately and then just stacked them over and over again to make them sound like a harmony. And then I added some compression over here to just glue them together. The EQ is not really doing anything over here, and then some auto filter over here. Some doubler chorus effect and some reverb over here and some sidechain. And it creates a lush texture of pads. And another thing with the same texture, what I did was this. Again, it's the same sound that I showed you, but some more effect on top of it, like this auto pan, which I've used to create some stutter. And some more auto pan to create left and right movement. And that with the track sounds very interesting.
I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow. I'm losing my mind. I'm fading with time. I feel it in my body slow.
So yeah, that's the entire production stage. Again, you can see over here, nothing is too complicated, nothing is busy. It's just very simple ideas laid down. But because it's, like I said, because the idea was to keep it minimal, every single element that you add in the song is very important. Like each of the element has to do its job, right? If it doesn't happen that way, like the minimal approach to production doesn't really work. So when you're trying out this method, make sure like everything that you have in the track is a main element, and it's not like a supportive element, because just one element has to fill up a lot of space. In terms of effects, I haven't really used anything other than like a simple white noise over here, very simple crash, reverse cymbal over here, and there's some vocal effect that I've done that's called reverse reverb technique. I'm pretty sure a lot of you know about it. Just in case if you don't, what you need to do is basically put your vocal through a lot of reverb, just long reverb, freeze to audio, and reverse the sample, and it creates a very interesting tail of vocal, something like this. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, that's the overall production stage. I hope you got some idea of how you can arrange and produce a track. If you have any questions, I'm sure a lot of questions over here. Right now is the time.
Yeah, we can take. So thank you, JP, for sharing that, and both you and Charita for giving us an insight into your songwriting process, how you went about producing it. I think it's a fantastic track, and all the best for the release.
Thank you.
So what I'll do is I'll just quickly. Sorry, you were saying, JP, something?
No, let's go through the questions.
So we can, I think one of the questions that has come up quite a bit is what is a good starting point for somebody who's, getting into it. A couple of questions people have asked this question. So maybe if you have any ideas, like what should one start with, when they want to get into production?
In terms of like the tools and the setup, or in terms of the approach?
I guess that's what they mean. Maybe in terms of tools, or techniques. Yeah, I think what should one learn? I think because obviously, going and buying an expensive software, expensive gear, that is not advised at all. You should, according to me, I would say just start with the basics. Like just get, a basic DAW, even if it's GarageBand or anything. There are quite a few free ones or a very affordable one. Just get those and get your hands on it and just start making music. Just mess around, just experiment, just like you would do with an instrument where you would just sort of poke around and see what is working, and then start taking, if you either you can go online or find a teacher who could sort of break things down for you. And again, like anything else, the more you practice, the better you get at it. That's what I would say. JP, if you want to add something to that.
Exactly what he said. Pick up take any software whichever you're comfortable with, and just spend hours and hours on it. Make sure you've read the entire manual. Trust me, a lot of learning happens in the manual. If you know the manual in an hour, like you'll know things that your software can do, and more you know about the software you're using, better your workflow will be. And workflow is the key in terms of production. Like moving fast, knowing what you want to achieve in the track is that's very important in production. If you're struggling with what your DAW can do, make sure first you spend enough time knowing your DAW, because that's the platform on which you're making and laying down your ideas. Now, ideas come really quick in your brain, but translating that into your DAW is the bigger part. And if you know your DAW well, that's when you're gonna get it done easily. If you're struggling with devices, make sure you see enough tutorials or reach out to people who are using this and see their techniques. Or if you have a friend who's using the same DAW, just exchange ideas, meet as many producers as you can, and learn their techniques, share your techniques with them. More you do this thing, more you learn about your DAW, and invariably everything eventually adds up in your production, and then you get better at it. So the starting point is just get a pair of headphone, a DAW, and spend time as much as you can on it. Also, in terms of approach, if you don't know where to start your track from, initially it's a good habit to have a reference track. If you don't know like what kind of kick drum you want, what kind of bass line you want, pick a track that you really like or something that you want to make, and try to just replicate the whole track for your learning purposes. Don't make that a copy of that song, but just to learn the process, try to copy that track 100%. How since they've used, what processing they must have used, what kind of distortion is there, what kind of compression. Just try to replicate the whole thing. In the process, you'll actually learn how that song was made. And then again, that information then you can use to create your own original idea. So in terms of approach, this is one approach that I started with, and it helped me a lot. And then eventually when you get comfortable with these ideas or with the process, just don't have a reference track and try to create something of your own.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Great. So there are a couple of questions about drum programming and starting with drums. So Mehek Jain has asked that what is the first thing you should be starting out when creating a track? Is it the rhythm, drums, or something else you should start with? Now that's one question. And another related to drums is how do you program drums with varying subdivisions? They're saying that it's hard to type out some complex beats on the keyboard. That's why Aditya Chaudhary. So maybe you can share some tips, on that, JP.
There are a few things in terms of starting your track. Definitely don't have a fixed approach that you always start with the drums or start with the chords. Go with the flow, see where you are, like what ideas are you getting, and when you're working or when you're just sitting on your computer. uh, a lot of time you might not have an idea, and then that's when you can just start off by finding a sound that you like. A lot of time that sparks the inspiration to make a track. But don't have a fixed approach of you should always start with this, because I know for a fact that that doesn't work with everyone. And if you do this, eventually you'll see a formula happening, or you'll always have the same pattern of producing music, because every time you're going with the drums first and the bass line, and invariably it becomes a pattern. You don't want that. You want free flow, and you want to have inspiration based music production and not method based music production. So don't focus on what you should start with, rather look for ideas. What's inspiring you? Is it a sound? Is it uh, a rhythm? And if you find something that's inspiring you, take that as your initial idea and build forward from there, rather than going with a steady approach. The second question was, how do you program intricate beats? Trust me, there's nothing this computer can't do. All you have to do is, like I said, know your DAW. For example, if you're using Ableton Live, you can go zoom in as much as you want in the grid and put a note over there. So if you're talking about programming intricate stuff, you can achieve it. The other thing is that you also have a groove segment over here, and all DAWs have it. Sometimes if you're failing to get a right groove, trust me, almost every groove that you can think of is available over here, and a lot more on internet. Just get the grooves and just drop it on your drums, and you will get what you are looking for. So it's not that the computer is limiting. Yes, it takes a time to humanize it or make it sound as human as possible. But again, like I said, it's a workflow thing. If you spend enough time on it, you will achieve it. The other thing is that always of course use something like push to, where you can just finger drum it or play your own beat and record it. Nothing obviously beats that. But just in case, if you don't have access to a push or any drum sequencer, use one of these grooves, rhythms, and just see what can you do with your drum sequences. I'm pretty sure you'll achieve what you're looking for.
Great, great.
Yeah.
There are some questions about, some people have asked about what is a good starting microphone for home recording, and then some also have asked like if you have any recommendations for vocal microphone. So very related, like both.
Uh, the first microphone I would recommend you guys is to buy SM58, because that's a very versatile microphone when you're starting out. When you are comfortable with microphone, next thing you start with is a condenser microphone. You can go for like a beginner series condenser microphone. This Rode NT1 is a very versatile beginner level condenser microphone. There's some microphones by Lewitt, which are decent sounding microphones that could be your first initial um, investment in condenser microphones. As you start understanding microphones, that's when you will understand what microphones you want to buy for your instruments or your vocals. For example, read about something called frequency response of a microphone. It tells you what are the frequency area this microphone is good at, and then see whether that's the range you want. For example, if you buy a microphone that's a very bright microphone, but you want to record uh, cello, or you want to record, let's say, an acoustic guitar, maybe you want a good mid-range microphone, but the microphone you have is very bright, so you might not get the right sound. So obviously, every time you pick a microphone, always look into things like frequency spectrum and what's the response, what's the polar pattern. That helps you understand whether the microphone is good for you. And that should be your thought process while purchasing a microphone, rather than like picking a microphone, that whether this microphone is versatile enough or not, because a lot of these microphone and most of the microphones are designed to be versatile. That's how they market it. But you have to understand what your purpose is, and you pick the microphone based on that. Like I said, standard vocal microphones didn't work for this track. We had to go with like an unconventional approach for this recording. So you'll have to try a few microphones before you decide which microphone works for you, and all of you will have a different microphone. But in general, if you are a vocalist who performs live and wants a decent dynamic microphone for the studio, SM58 is a go-to microphone. If you are a guitarist who wants to record amp, and if you want a dynamic microphone, SM57 is the one that you should go for. And in condenser, like I say, Rode NT1. You can also try AKG C14. That's also a decent versatile microphone. And yeah, and then there's an ocean of microphones out there. More you test, more you'll know which one to pick. But these are the recommendations I would give. Any more questions?
Yes, there are a lot of questions. I'm just sifting through them.
Yeah, I've got a really good question for you, JP.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that the folks in the session are going to have to do next is they need to take the song that they're writing and take it to that next level, which I think is kind of like the scratch track, the initial session that you put together. How do you do that? Do you actually kind of immediately go right into your studio and start sketching things out? Do you make notes? What's your sort of process from taking, whatever you're playing on keyboard, guitar, whatever with the vocalist, and how do you move that into, sketching it out in your digital audio workstation so you can kind of render it and get like sort of a picture of what the audio landscape looks like? How do you do that?
Yeah. So very good question. For me, what really works is that, and this naturally happens to me, is that when I hear an idea, somehow in my brain I hear the final product, like what this track will sound like. It's right there. It's there in my brain that, okay, this idea needs to be like this, and maybe it's experience, or maybe it's just happening naturally to me, but somehow I always know what the final picture needs to look like, or what it is in my brain. And then it's just getting the same thing on my DAW. For example, this track, I knew the sense, I knew the melody, like these are the tones that are going to work over here, and this is the bass that I'm already hearing in my brain. So it's mostly translating, most of the time, 90% of the time, it's just translating what I'm hearing in my brain. But yeah, that doesn't really answer the question for like somebody who's starting out, right? Because like, how do you say like, no, what's in your brain? So so for you guys, very uh, one thing that really helps is what Adi said. That's the pre-production stage. For example, you'll whatever you've written is falling under, for example, it's falling under some umbrella, or let's say indie pop, or for example, it's rock, or if it's metal, or any style of music, whatever you've written, if it has a very, if you can categorize into some uh, format of music or some style of music, listen to a lot of music in that style. If, for example, if it's a metal track, listen to the biggest bands or the best sounding metal bands in the world, and see what kind of drums they're using, what kind of bass tones they're using, what types of riffs and guitar tones they're using, and try to understand how to make these tones for your song. Once you have the idea, take your idea, whatever it is, start playing it and start getting the tone right in your DAW. Have 6-7 approach for each single instrument. For example, try 6-7 tones for drum kits, try a very aggressive drum kit, try a gentle drum kit, try an electronic drum kit, and see which one gives the best feeling for that idea that you're looking for. It's a it's a tedious process, and it's a longer approach to music production. But again, when you're starting out, when you're not sure, the only way you will get sure is by listening to it when you play it back. So it's very important that you approach multiple different styles, or multiple different uh, processes, to understand which one is the one that's something that's sounding closest to what you have in your brain.
Yeah.
And then lay it down. The next thing you do is for the bass, next thing you do is for the guitar, and for everything. Like, it's going to be a long process.
Sure.
But in the process, you will have permutation of combination of what really worked and what didn't work, and then you take the elements that you work and then start arranging your final production. So
Yeah.
this is
So
one
it
thing you
sounds
should try
like
it.
it's really like you just got to write, and you've just got to start producing. You got to jump in and just start doing this. I think one of the things, I think musicians who are starting to get into this, like there's a couple of questions over in the Q&A as well. How do I start to produce? And there's, I think, Adi, you might have said this to me about Ableton a while ago. I was like in a previous session we were doing together. I was like, so how do you work in Ableton? You're like, well, just start working in Ableton. And it's just like you'll find your way and you'll find your process. And it sounds like JP, it is really listen to a lot of different music, analyze and be critical about what you're hearing, about the song forms, about the layering, about the use of the instruments, and then start to experiment and go at it from that, sort of, playful experimental process, and you'll start to discover the sounds that your ear leans you toward, or the approaches, that the workflow, the process that works best for you. And then I think Valerie mentioned this in her session the last time. When you hit a wall, try and do something new.
Of course.
If you hit a wall and you're like, hey, this isn't working for me, well, just try a different approach. And then, it sounds like you listen to a lot of different genres of music. Do you ever approach songs where you're like, hey, I really like that sound, I'm going to write a song that is like that? Do you kind of ever do like a sound-alike project?
Yes, I do. In fact, a lot of my initial learning in production happened that way. So whenever I wanted to make something, or I wanted to make something inspired by a certain song that I had, the first thing I always did was to make that song. Like, how have they made that song? And in the process, I learned like this is how we make that song, and then made a song inspired by that. So a lot of the exercises I do is to just copy and make sounds that I really like. and sounds that somebody has made already or put there in that song. So it's literally finding out what synthesizer they use and then trying to make that same sound with the same synthesizers if I can find it. And then once I have that sound, once I know how this was made, I try to do this on my own song. So
Yeah, it's
again,
like transcribing for like it's like how
yeah,
you transcribe musical ideas, you sort of
yeah,
transcribe production ideas and see how they've approached the vocal production or some kind of synth lines or anything, and try to find a way
yeah,
to kind of find your own vocabulary with it. And I think that is one of the things that we were talking about, and I think Jason mentioned earlier as well, where just like with improvisers and writers, we develop a vocabulary. The idea
of
with
course.
production is that you develop your own techniques, your own sound, your own vocabulary, and you have this sort of a sound that you develop over time. And it doesn't happen just in one night. Usually, I mean, you may be a genius and that can happen, but you've seen that it takes quite a lot of time and experimentation, listening, trying things, failing at things. So it's all a process. So we all are like just learning every day.
And for example, the harmonies, the vocal harmonies over here, it's inspired by Bon Iver, right? Like, no, he has this, like, they have this standard harmonizing sound, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to create. So you go and just listen to what's there in the song and then try to replicate for your song. And it worked over here, so it's there in my song. So it's simple. It's as simple as that, right? And then it's just, again, like, if you want to write an essay, you need to know a lot of words, right? If you want to produce a song, you need to know a few techniques for you to like do cool stuff. Otherwise, like, it's just you don't end up writing a good essay. It's as simple as that. The way you have vocabulary for like for speaking, for writing, for music, so listening, as more music you listen to, more critically analyze, like more critical analyzing you do for different tracks, on different tracks, more you understand the process, and then you just take things that you like from these different ideas and try to create something of your own.
Sounds good.
Definitely.
Just really quickly for both of you, it sounds like you do a lot of work on your own independently, but could you talk a little bit about collaborative songwriting, collaborative production, and your experiences with that? It looks like a lot of the folks here are kind of probably at home, working on their laptop or something, or their machine, and they feel like isolated. What are your recommendations for how they might approach, finding a co-writer or finding a co-producer, so you have somebody to bounce ideas off of? Like, how do you both approach that?
Yeah, in my case, sure. In my case, I mean, over the years, like, you meet people and then you kind of sort of jam with them, or you like somebody's work and you kind of, start talking, and then there's this sort of idea, okay, let's work on something together, and then you try stuff out. Usually you can feel a chemistry when you work with somebody and you feel, okay, there is this give and take that is happening. And I think you kind of feel that kind of forward motion happening. And in my case, again, like, I've worked in like 7 pieces band where we've recorded together live, in one day we've done an album. From that sort of production to where one song we've done multi-track, multi-produced, and so many sort of layers over like 2 months, that kind of stuff as well. So all of those experiences teach you so much, and each sort of area and style of working is so different. Where, for example, if we are doing the live tracking, a lot of the pre-production happens in the writing and rehearsal stage with the live band, and then you just go into the studio and get the best take. On the other hand, when we're doing like this multi-track production kind of aspect, where you looking at like a basic sort of structure, and then you keep building on it, keep adding layers, keep building on the architecture. So I think all of those different things really work. But I think, just to add to the final thing about how to meet people, for me, it's just the more you're in a community of musicians and artists, that is where you can, it could be an online community, it could be an offline community. The more you sort of build a network, that's where you could find like-minded people. You may have a very obscure taste in music, but that doesn't mean that they may not be somebody who would vibe with you. And there is always a way to find that. So yeah, JP, how about you?
Yeah, adding to that, wherever you are, like, obviously there's a community of music makers and producers, musicians around. Like, constantly there are things happening in your city. Make sure, like, you're always updated with like user group meet or like a production workshop that's happening, because that's like, instantly you're going to meet like 20, 25, or probably 100 people. For example, over here, there's 200 participants. Next to like 3-4 weeks from now, all of them are going to submit a track, right? And if you go through all of these tracks, probably you'll find an instrumentalist, a vocalist, somebody that you really like, and now you can connect to them because you did a production workshop together and you really like what they produce. Send your stuff to them. If they like internet, again, you can connect to anyone with internet. So it's more about being aware of what's happening in terms of music in your local area, and also on internet, like as many forums as you can join, or as many online panels like this, workshops like this, wherever you can find musicians, producers, like be constantly updated of things, and see and just look out for people that do cool stuff. Just write an email, just talk to them that I really like what you did over there, here's my music, exchange ideas. If it clicks, you have a collaborator. And then for example, yesterday Charita and I were working on this song over Zoom, right? So now you're never really disconnected. If nothing, you can always meet on Zoom and exchange ideas and still produce or write music together. If not meeting physically, like you can always use the online platform and exchange ideas and work together with people. So there are you can meet people in many different ways.
Yeah, no, this is great to know. And just really quickly, in that experience of like co-writing and collaborating with people, how has that helped you to individually grow as artists? It's sort of, sometimes we get into our own head and we're like, my way is the right way and I like my thing.
Yeah.
So how has co-writing and collaborating helped you to sort of open up your approach?
So when I am working with someone, like with other musicians, usually like it's never about the music first. Like most of at first I tune with them as a person, like they have to be a friend, or I really need to understand who they are as a person, right? Know what their thought process is, what kind of stuff they like, because a lot of that tells you about even how they would write the music. Like general like habits can tell you a lot about a musician. For example, somebody who's very disciplined, you can see the same approach in the music production, right? Somebody who's like who doesn't want to do, like maybe who's like all over the place, like, and also have like a very erratic way of music production. So you really understand who the other person is and how they really like to make music, or how they really spend their time with their craft, right? And once you understand that, like you know what place you should be in. For example, like how exactly, what kind of ideas would they like, or what kind of ideas would work over here. So like there's a constant filtering process that happens, so that you don't always do what you are doing, but in this process you're knowing the person better and their style, and then trying to be in the spot where you can connect with that person. For me, it's always about that, more than like they're good musicians, or I like the style, this and that. Like that comes secondary, because even if they're great musicians, most of the time collaboration can fail because you're not just tuned in with the person, or like both of the collaborators for the project don't have the similar goal. It's very important that both of them are in unison and have a similar goal for the final product, or sorry, not to call music a product, but a final piece. Yeah.
Cool. This has been great. And one of the things I just want to add here, ladies and gentlemen, we are connected remotely, but GMI is back on campus. Berklee is on campus. And I strongly encourage all of you, if you're really interested in growing, connecting with a community of people like you that are musicians, you should seriously consider looking at the short courses that GMI offers, but also GMI is a Berklee Global Partner. Their curriculum transfers to Berklee. So if you attend the GMI program and complete their program, you can transfer your music classes to Berklee if you're interested in coming to study with us in Boston. Get a chance to hang with JP and Adi and all the incredible faculty members there. And just the vibe at that school is wonderful. So if you want to be around people like you and be writing music together and performing and producing music together, that's something to seriously consider. I did drop some of these links in here, so you can go to the GMI website and obviously, if you want to learn more about the pathway between GMI and Berklee, that's the link right here. So you can see about the program that they offer, and then I can see that Bree, you've got the session registration up there for session number 3. We're going to email the link to all of you as well, because we definitely want to see you there. It looks like y'all have a lot of work, between what Valerie shared with the object writing exercises and kind of starting to play with your prosody work, how you're taking your conceptual idea of your lyric and doing that sort of alchemy of taking that idea and creating the music out of it, and then following what Adi and JP have shared here in this session and actually using the production techniques, listening like a producer, using your workspace, whatever the DAW you're working in, whether it's GarageBand or something more robust, you can start mapping out your songs, and we're really, really excited to be checking out the songs that you're going to submit and as we go forward in the session. Adi and JP, any last thoughts for the group today before we wrap up this session? Adi, what are your recommendations for folks as they go forward and start digging into some aspects of being a producer?
So yeah, I mean, firstly, thank you, Jason, for rounding things off so nicely, and it's such a pleasure to have everybody here join in again today. So I think the idea I would just say is that don't get swayed by, this is the trend of hip hop, this is the trend of rap, what is going on. Follow sort of your instinct, follow your heart with what your songwriting is taking you to, like what are you feeling inspired to do. And as we were talking about, find artists that you like and you are inspired by their sound, and try to emulate that. There's no harm in being inspired by other people. Obviously, don't blatantly copy people. That's one side of having the aesthetic vision. And on the other side, whatever you can do to up your skills, learn. Some people are asking about music theory, some people are asking about production techniques. Obviously, overnight, we can't learn these things. So whether it's going to a school, whether it's finding a community, whatever works, find a way to upskill yourself and have more and more tools under your belt will just expand your horizons as a creator. So I would say just keep at it and keep doing it.
Cool.
Yeah,
JP, what do you got, man?
Again, thank you guys so much for having me, and this is amazing. If I have to tell you one thing, it's music, it's supposed to be fun, so don't be overwhelmed by the process of having a great production or having a great mix and master. All of that is secondary. If you're not having fun, you're not gonna make nice song. If you're having fun, you're gonna be honest to it, and that will show in your track that this is something that you are having fun with. If you try to constantly improve this in the process, you might just lose the fun in it, and no, that's not important. And also, if it helps you just understand that, like, one of the biggest producers in the world and one of my favorite producers, Rick Rubin, doesn't know how to play an instrument, doesn't know how to use a DAW, doesn't know anything. He's just there in a room to tell you whether it's good or not, and he's one of the best producers in the world because he has confidence and faith in what he knows what sounds good, right? So connect with your music and just see what makes you confident, and trust me, that feeling is right, nothing else. Don't let anyone else tell you this is not good, this and that. It doesn't matter. As long as this is honest and you had fun on it, you are on the right path, and just keep doing it. It's like exercising. More you do it, you improve at it. So it's that simple. Just have fun. That's it, nothing else.
Cool. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Bree, what are your thoughts here as we wrap things up? Any messages for our group here before we break?
Yeah, we'd love to see you at the next session. As a reminder, like we said at the beginning, all of this wonderful knowledge you can use for your songs. We can't wait to hear them. At the end of next session, we're going to give you a form to submit your songs to us for the critique, and we really can't wait to see what you're going to make. So we hope to see you in just a few weeks for the next session.
Amazing. All the best, everybody. Thank you, Bree, for that.
Yep.
Thanks, JP. Thanks,
Thank
Adi. Best to everybody
Thank
there,
you,
and we will
JP.
see you
Thanks,
soon.
Bree. Thank you, everybody. We're going to sign off now. Bye bye. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Thank you.